listening to Around Comics. 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 You're listening to Around Comics.
We are on the radio. It's the radio. Hello. How are you? It's the radio. I know it's not really the radio. I don't even know what that voice was. I'm not sure. It just popped in my head. Did you ever, when you were younger, when you were a child, if you were old like me, I'm an old person now. Did you ever, do you guys remember, cassette tapes? They're making a comeback, evidently, as is everything in the fucking 80s. We're out of ideas now. It's just recycle generation after generation. We have no new creative thoughts. Everything just comes back. It's 80s time. Cassette tapes are coming back. When I was a kid, I used to make cassette tapes of radio shows. How weird is that? And then I became a podcaster. Well, not like I became a podcaster. That's not like, I mean, you don't have to really do anything to become a podcaster other than spend $20 a month on hosting and maybe have a microphone. That's really all you have to do to become a professional podcast. I guess a professional would mean somebody would be paying me for this. Nobody really is, so I'm paying myself to do this. So that doesn't really count as a professional podcast. I don't know. I'm sure that there are people out there Joe Rogan is a professional podcaster. That's his job. That's his main source of income, I think, is podcasting. Mark Maron is probably considered like a professional podcaster and comedian. All the comedians are podcasters now, which kind of drives me insane because they're much funnier and more entertaining to listen to than your average schmo talking about comic books. So it's it's a competitive marketplace for a amateur podcaster to try and get a foothold in that world. In radio, because we're in radio. This is sort of a Ed Sullivan. It's an Ed Sullivan. That's a real old pull for you youngins. I know my demographic on this is very young. It skews to the 18-month-olds love it. 18-month-olds love this podcast. And then anywhere from 18-month to, I would say, like 427-month-olds. That's my main demographic, I think. It's a small niche of infants and toddlers, but hey, they watch YouTube too. You ever seen those little bastards just fucking sucking it up on an iPhone in their mom's lap? Can't get enough of it. Can't get enough of YouTube. I don't know what we're doing to future generations of children, but it's probably not a good thing. It's probably not a good thing, but they said that about radio. I have no idea why I keep radio. We're on the radio. What have I got to talk about today, folks? It's been a while since I did one of these. A lot going on, and not really. I don't know. I just I can pretend. I can sit here and pretend and lie to you, as Henry Ford said. Work for Ford on my assembly line, or I'll have you murdered and buried in a unmarked grave. No, I don't think Henry Ford ever said that, but he said something about success and failure, and or just lie about it. I think that's kind of that's a way to lead your life. Either be successful, work hard, and turn failures into a lesson, or just lie about it to your friends, and they probably won't give a shit enough to really care. I have my 30th high school reunion. That's how old I am. It's coming up this weekend. I'm really not looking forward to it, but my wife wants to go, and so I figure, okay, why not? That should be interesting. I don't really, whatever. I could care less. I didn't like high school when I was there. I don't really, most of the people there I didn't give a shit about, and I don't give a shit about them now. But hey, let's maybe that can change. No, it won't. I still will give a shit about those people. I always picture it as like Grosse Point Blank, sort of, but it won't be nearly as fun or weird as that movie makes you believe that high school reunions can be. That movie lied to you, lied to me. It made a liar out of John Cusack and Minnie Driver. Was that her name? Minnie Driver? I think that was her name. Making you believe that high school reunions were fun and quirky and you were gonna maybe have to assassinate someone. That could be the possibility. Anyway, what do I want to talk about today? Nothing. It has nothing to do with any of that. I want to talk about identity. I don't want to say identity politics necessarily, but I guess that is what it is. I'm not. I don't want to. It's come to my sort of understanding that there is a underlying current in comics today about identity and diversity, and that's ultimately a very good thing. I think we can mostly agree on. I don't want to come off as someone that is against any of that stuff. I think representation for people is important to a certain degree. I don't think it's as important as maybe people lead you to believe, but hey, I've had 40, 50 years of comics of people that kind of look like me and are in relationships that I'm familiar with, and kind of white, straight males. There's plenty of comics out there still, and from the past that represent me for the most part. Although I'm not 100% white, but I think I identify as white. I identify as a straight white male. But obviously over the last few years, that has changed slowly in comics. Some for the better, some for the homogenous and mediocre. But you're seeing that companies are making an effort to some degree or another, trying to be inclusive and trying to give people characters that they can identify with, whether it be race or gender or sexual identity, whatever it may be. And as I said, I'm not going to sit here and complain about that, because there's no reason to complain about it, really, if you're a logical, thoughtful person, which I consider myself as such. I would complain about individual books and individual things and some of the processes of doing this, but it's a messy thing to try and fix 60, 70 years of mistakes in a couple of years. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. But one of the things that has come up to me that I've sort of noticed recently is that companies like Marvel and DC are in a weird position, and especially like editors and people that hire talent. There's this sort of recently, I've noticed, outcry from people inside the industry, whether it's sort of people that write and blog and talk about comics, or online, more specifically people on Twitter and those places, talking about comics and complaining about comics and complaining about how these companies are still failing day after day in this effort to diversify and to give people representation, and not just with the characters, but more specifically with the people they hire. And it's become this, I think, very strange position that these companies are in, because they're told, a person of color, if you're writing a character that is black, or a character that is gay, or a character that is trans, or a character that is a female, then in order to properly handle that character, you should be of that same place to properly identify with that character and handle the character in the appropriate way. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know if that makes for the best stories. I don't know if you're taking the best talent and making the best stories of it, but I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand the purpose behind that effort or that thought. And okay, so if you're gonna write Black Panther, maybe you should be black, or if you're gonna write, whatever character it is, you should be of that same place so that you can come from a sort of honest and genuine place that character would be relatable from. You know what I mean? And that makes sense. But then just becomes this thing where people are complaining that a black writer is only offered or only writing black characters, or a female isn't writing male characters, or a gay writer isn't writing straight characters. And I kind of chuckle at that, because it's this weird place of like, okay, you don't want someone straight and white to write anything other than straight white people characters, a straight white man who, let's face it, at this point in time is still the majority of comic book writers are straight white men. Whether or not that is sort of problematic, or that's a part of the industry's problems, or of sort of a systematic racism or whatever it is, I don't know. I don't have that answer. Or if it's just there's the majority of people that are writing comics, I think in say the United States, are probably straight white men still. Yes, there's definitely black women and gay men and Chinese and whatever race. There are artists and writers in comics from all creeds and classes and races and everything. They exist, but I don't think that they're the majority, because they're not the majority of just population. So just simple math kind of tells you that straight white men are still going to be the majority of writers and artists that are out there. And maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. That's I don't have any data to support that argument. I'm just saying, off the top of my head, that seems logical to me. So you have this pool of resources. You're an editor, say at Marvel or DC, and you need to hire someone for a book to write it. And it's a black character, or it's a gay character, or it's a female, or whatever it is. So your first instinct is, I have to find someone who is of that same thing. If it's a black character, I have to find a black writer, right? Like, that's pretty logical. That's what people have told us. That's what, sort of complaints are about to some degree, or that's what, that's, I wouldn't say it's a mandate from on high, but I think that there is an unwritten sort of rule in comics now from Marvel and DC. There's an atmosphere that's like, if you're going to create a new book, or if you're going to hire a writer for a black character or a female driven book, then they better be of that same, place. I think that's there. I think editors are definitely aware of that. I'm aware of it. I've been told as much from multiple people in the industry that, writers are reluctant to pitch stories unless it's a character that is of their same, gender or race or whatever. Male writers are not pitching female-driven books because they're conscious of the fact, or they think at least, that the company is not going to go with it because they're not female or whatever, black or whatever it might be. Which, that's a problem in and of itself. But okay, we're trying to fix issues, so like I said, things are going to get messy. It's not going to be perfect. So, but, okay, if you're an editor, say, or you're a hiring agent at Marvel and DC, and you're looking to fulfill a need, you have a book that's, female-driven. I need a female writer. Okay. So I have this talent pool of female writers, and there's certainly good female comic book writers out there. I'm sure there's more than we are aware of, maybe, or I'm aware of. There's plenty out there, I'm sure, you can pick from or get. But, the pool gets narrowed at some point because, okay, well, not only do I have to get a female, but I have to get a female who, one, maybe sells books. Because at the end of the day, Marvel and DC is in the business of selling books. So, there's names. There's certain names that sell books. And if you're going to have if you're on a big title, if you're an editor of Batman or you're an editor of Spider-Man or whatever it may be, in order to, one of the parts I'm sure of keeping your job is selling books and making sure you're putting someone on the book that continues to sell books, that doesn't have a big drop off in sales or hopefully increases sales. That's part of it, regardless of talent level or just, diversity or need or whatever it may be. That's part of it. It just is a reality. These companies are there to sell books first and foremost. So that shrinks the talent pool a little bit because, there might be plenty of like female, say you're writing, say you're looking to fill a book for a black female character. Yeah, there might be plenty of black female writers out there, but how many of them have proven that they can get the work in on time, have a name, and might sell books, have some cachet, are professional, are easy to work with, or good to work with, and write well. So I don't know, that shrinks things. Okay, but I still want that type of writer, so I go out and I try and find one, and maybe I do, maybe I can't, whatever it may be. But now there's this thing in the industry where people are sort of insulted by the idea that you're offering only a black female character to a black female, or a gay character to a gay writer, or an Asian character to an Asian writer. People are offended by this, their sense of right and wrong. It's like, why should they only get those? And it's like, well, okay, not that they should only, but if I am in a position where I have to fulfill that spot with, if I have an Asian character or an Asian led book, I have to find an Asian writer. I have to offer it to an Asian writers, to this small pool of writers or artists. And if I have Batman, who's not that, well, I'm not going to offer it necessarily to a small pool. I'm going to go to a big pool. I'm going to try and find a big name. I'm going to find someone that I think is going to sell a ton of books, who's either so talented that no one can deny it, or who already has built a following where we can piggyback on that and ensure that a certain amount of books are sold. You can take chances, I think, on smaller titles. You can take chances on, smaller runs or that kind of thing. But, there's this idea that everything is going to be fixed overnight, and anytime it's not, it's an injustice. And sometimes it's just the reality of what we're able to do, or what people are able to do, what companies are able to do, or, while still staying in business. You can't expect a company like Marvel or DC to lose money just to make your sense of justice fulfilled. It's a ridiculous thing, but it continues to sort of prosper in fandom and in journalism and that kind of thing, in comics, where you're putting these editors and hiring agents in incredibly tough situations, expecting them to be perfect, expecting them to never make mistakes, and expecting them, some 23-year-old editor at Marvel to fix 60 years of diversity problems. That seems a bit insane to try and do that, but we continue to try. I mean, and it's right to continue to push, but I don't think we can just sort of lambaste and demonize these companies for doing what they're going to do, which is be a company first. I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's getting to this point of ridiculousness that you're asking so much that it's always going to be impossible. It's going to be impossible to fulfill these requirements that you're putting on these companies. They can work towards it. It's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something to complain about. It's never going to be 100% right. But if they're working towards it, I think we have to, if nothing else, give time to try and fix the problems. You can't expect this to be fixed overnight. And I think it's just kind of crazy to try. But I also think, like I said, it creates other problems where, and I don't know that this is a major problem, because quite honestly, there's plenty of shitty comic books that have been produced over 60, 70 years of comics. So if you give a chance to someone that isn't maybe straight and white and male, and the book isn't the best because they're still sort of finding their way, or they haven't, maybe had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of experience in the industry, making indie books, working for Image, or doing a bunch of other stuff, and then now it's their chance. Maybe you give someone an opportunity that you wouldn't give a straight white male, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's a big issue. Okay, like I said, we're trying to correct problems that exist, and so, you know, if mistakes are made going the other direction, okay, you know, so be it. Everybody will be fine. We'll all get over it. It'll be okay. I don't know. That's just some thoughts I had. I unfortunately have to run. That's all I got on this radio show. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back. Me and Chris and Tom will be back at the end of the month, I think, with another episode. I might come back with some other stuff here soon. We'll see. I don't know if I ever have thoughts on things. Please feel free to send me your thoughts at info@aroundcomics.com, or you can reach us on Twitter and Instagram @aroundcomics, Facebook. We're on there too. We did start a YouTube channel where it's just audio at this point. I don't know if we're ever going to do anything more than that. Quite honestly, we just don't have the manpower or energy to try and. I'd love to do a video show with the three of us. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I'd love to start a Kickstarter to try and send us to San Diego Comic-Con at some point. Not this year, obviously. It's way too early, or it's way too late. But that's an idea of kicking around, of trying to get me, Chris, and Tom to go to San Diego Comic-Con one year, maybe with the help of our listeners, to try and cover a bunch of stuff there and have fun with it and record a bunch of episodes while we're there. I don't know, just an idea. Send me your thoughts on stuff. I hope you're enjoying the show. I hope you're enjoying us coming back and doing Around Comics. It seems that you are. I know it's not weekly. I know it's probably different than what you remember, but hey, stick with us. We're still you know, having a good time talking about comics and figuring out what this new iteration of Around Comics is. But yeah, aroundcomics.com. You can always find us there. In the meantime, in between time, we'll be everywhere in and around comics.